President Donald Trump has unveiled plans for the U.S. Navy to build a new class of heavily armed battleships. The so-called Trump-class vessels are being billed as the biggest, fastest and most powerful warships America has ever built. President Trump says production will start with 2 vessels with plans for a fleet of up to 25. The first ship to be christened the USS Defiant. He says the vessels, each weighing more than 30,000 tons, will be equipped with nuclear-capable systems, hypersonic missiles and laser weapons, and will serve as flagships of a revamped U.S., quote, Golden Fleet.
They'll help maintain American military supremacy, revive the American shipbuilding industry, and inspire fear in America's enemies all over the world. We want respect. We're going to have it. We already have it.
Mr. Trump also revealing that South Korea's Hanwha will work closely with the U.S. Navy. A deal to cut U.S. tariffs last month, committing Seoul to substantial shipbuilding investments in the United States. President Trump denying that naval upgrading aims to counter China, maintaining it is instead about peace through strength. Decades of U.S. maritime domination increasingly challenged by China's rapidly expanding navy. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, China, in terms of ship numbers, has outnumbered the U.S. Navy since 2014. Beijing now operates the world's largest fleet with about 234 combat ships. The U.S., however, still holds a decisive edge in global reach and firepower. It operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. That compares with China's 3, which are all conventionally powered. For now, the U.S. remains the world's most powerful naval force. But on shipbuilding, China already holds more than 53% of the commercial industry.
I think one of the biggest problems for the United States is the lack of shipbuilding capabilities. So the United States are now needing to have more collaboration with Japan and South Korea to support its shipbuilding capability. And the second bigger question is that even though the United States still have the bigger naval forces, the United States Navy is all over. They are now busy with Venezuela. So the Chinese naval forces are concentrated in South China Sea, East China Sea. So if you look at the Western Pacific, then the balance of power between the United States and China is not really very stable.
And China, meantime, has rejected U.S. claims that it is engaged in a nuclear arms race, calling instead on Washington to fulfill its own responsibilities on nuclear disarmament. Beijing's response follows a draft Pentagon report warning of China's expanding military ambitions and what it described as a lack of interest in arms control talks. Nick Harper is covering this story for CNA Live from Washington, D.C. Nick, this being President Trump, he's touting this plan, not just the lethality of weapons on these ships, but also what he says, thousands of jobs that will be created in the domestic industry. The critics, though, they're skeptical.
Well, that's right, Wei-Su. I mean, we've heard here from the US president that really this is all about not just strengthening the US fleet around the world, but boosting manufacturing here in the US, creating all of those jobs, spurring on the economy, all the type of things that the US president wants to be able to do. But as you mentioned, some real questions as to whether or not this is not just workable, but whether it's what the United States actually needs. Some of the questions being raised are the timeline for all of this. Donald Trump predicting that they could get 2 ships into the water within the next couple of years. But some analysts suggesting that it could take much longer than that. Then there's the costs. It's not clear how much it would cost to create just one of these battleships. Some analysts putting the figure at perhaps about $10 billion to design it, to build it, and to deploy it. But really the biggest thing is whether or not these are the type of battleships that the United States actually needs. Now, the US fleet has been in decline for some years, and the battleship of this size, of this magnitude, was essentially mothballed back in the 1990s because the feeling was it was not quite right for modern warfare or modern deterrence. And we have heard from analysts suggesting that these type of ships, enormous battleships, are simply not going to be needed to counter China. What you need instead is smaller ships and more of them positioned around the world. One person in particular, Mark Montgomery, a retired rear admiral, simply saying that they were too big, the wrong types of ships, and suggesting that other types of vessels were needed when it comes to trying to counter China.
Apart from size, Nick, these vessels will also come equipped with nuclear cruise missiles, which could, in principle, violate non-proliferation treaties that the US has signed with Russia. How is Washington planning to navigate that?
Well, that's right. Donald Trump spoke about essentially the lethality of these ships, saying that they would be 100 times more powerful than any battleship that the United States has ever built. There is that signal that this is all about trying to counter China, but he was asked specifically on that, and he said, really, it was about countering everyone, sending that message to adversaries that the US is ramping up production and creating a much bigger, much more powerful naval fleet. But there are two events next year which could be pivotal to all of this. We'll have in February the expiration of a US-Russia nuclear agreement, the New START deal. Now, that may not get renewed. And then in April, the US will be hosting a review conference looking at non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. The US trying to show that it's doing what it can. But the fears are that if New START expires and if these battleships get onto the water, it could create that three-way arms race between the US, Russia and China. But of course, the US is arguing, really, this is about deterrence. It's about strength through peace, offering these battleships, putting them on the water, but really the own goal being there to deter adversaries rather than using these battleships against them.
Oh, thanks. Nick Harper there covering this story for CNA live from Washington, D.C.